So here's my lovely cherry tree, not long to go, and then I think we're going to be taking these off. Looking really quite nice. There's a lot in there as well. So here we go now, we've got the first few cherries just ready for picking. So next we're just giving the first ones that I've picked a quick rinse through. So that's the first lot of cherries all bagged up, just over 3/4 of a kilogram, washed, bagged, and now they go straight into the freezer. Okay guys, so I'm ready to start making up my cherry wine now. I've got another couple of bags of frozen cherries in my freezer actually. I've just taken these out. These are the frozen bags. I've cleaned up my little cooking pot there. So I'm just going to empty all the cherries in there now, cover them over with water, and then it'd be good to cook up and bring and simmer for a while to extract all the juices. Freezing the cherries actually helps to break the flesh of the fruit down and will actually aid the extraction of the juice for the wine making as well. Right, so that's the first bag going in. The second bag going in. What I will do as well, guys, is I'm going to create a little sheet of the ingredients and the method that I'm going to use for making this wine, and I'm happy to share that with all of you. Okay, so guys, what I've got in there now is all of the cherries off my tree, which totaled 4.8 kilograms, and then I've just topped it up with water just so that it's just covering, and then I'm going to let them all defrost, and a little bit later on today I'm going to cook this lot up and just let it simmer for a while to extract all of those juices, and then the next stage would be basically tipping it into my fermenting bucket, into a muslin bag, so that I can again let it ferment on the pulp to start with, strain it out. I'll also be adding in some of the sugar, and probably a couple of ripe bananas as well. That gives it a little bit of body, but I'll talk you through the whole process as we go. That's it for now. I'm going to leave that for a few hours because all the cherries were frozen. That'll help them all to defrost down quite nicely before I give it a bit of a cook. Okay, cheers. Okay, so the next step is to prepare my fermenting bucket. So it's quite a big old bucket. I've had it for quite a long time, and it's been stored sealed with a lot of my other winemaking equipment in it. But now what I've done is I've washed it with washing up liquid, probably 3-4 times, thoroughly washed it inside and out all over. I've also thoroughly cleaned all my working area here, and then I'm going to use this VWP sterilizer cleaner. So it says a couple of teaspoons, but I actually use probably 3. So just straight into my bucket there like that. And I cannot stress enough the importance of cleanliness. So I'm just going to fill this up with probably about a gallon. I've got my muslin bag in there as well, so I'm going to agitate that and then let it stand probably for at least 12 hours before I use it. Whether that's necessary, I don't know, but I'm just really careful with being fully clean with everything. So that's what I do to clean my fermented bucket. Okay, so I've had to decant the cherries into 2 pots. I've now got it on the boil. Just going to well, bring it to the boil and then let it simmer for a bit. Got a banana in there as well. Just going to mush that down, mash it all in there like that, nice and lovely. All helps to add flavour. Don't forget, clean everything, clean hands all the time, keep everything nice and pristine. Okay, so you can buy tannin as an additive from any good wine shop, but what I've always tended to do is make a really good strong cup of tea. So what I've done here is I've got, I'm actually using 5 tea bags, boiling water, whack that in there, don't need a load of water, just enough. Cut your tea bags open, whack it in, let it sit for a while. Bung these other ones in as well. Give it a good old stir and add that all into the mix that we got going. So guys, I reckon I'm going to be making at least 3 gallons of wine out of this lot, out of my cherries. So I've just at the moment just got all of that stuff on the boil, simmering away there. I'm going to put some sugar in, but I'm just going to go with probably 750 mils, or yeah, 750 to start with. Oops, because I think there's quite a lot of natural sweetness, and I will be measuring properly with my hydrometer before I finalise the sugar content and start the fermentation. Alright, okay, so what we're going to do, I'm going to put some Camden tablets in now. So I've got about 3 gallons here, so I'm going to take 3 Camden tablets. I'm going to do one at a time on the spoon there, so you just a couple of spoons, crush them up. Oh, get that in there. Probably I might even do a 4th one as I've busted it. 2, 3, and then this will hopefully stop any nasty bits and bobs because it's fresh fruit, well, frozen boiled fruit I've used. So that's a 4th one going in. Just kill off any sort of yeasts and enzymes we don't want in there. And then as you can see here, I'm almost up to 15 litres, 3 gallons, so I reckon I'll end up making 3 gallons out of this batch. Alright, cool. Okay, I'm going to be adding 2 teaspoons full of citric acid into this batch, which, as I say, is going to end up making about 3 gallons. So let's put this in. Two teaspoons of citric acid. What I've got in there as well is I put all of the cherries and the pits and everything. It's all in there, the whole fruit, flesh, juice, etc. Everything in a muslin bag as well, so it's easy to extract a bit later on. Okay, so good morning. It's now the next day, just over 12 hours later. And what we're going to do now is add in the pectinase, pectic enzyme. So I'm just going to put 2 of these in and just stir that in there, and then that's good for another 12 hours. So it's all looking quite nice and stable at the moment. That's good. This is the stuff I'm using, called pectic enzyme. It just helps with the breaking down of the fruit and everything else, so it's good. Okay, so I've just made up a solution of steriliser, and I've got my hydrometer, the little tube, and my turkey baster in there, so I can, once that's all sterilised, I can then take a sample of my wine and just check where we are in terms of specific gravity and sugar content before we get the fermentation started a little bit later on today. Okay guys, so I'm now going to take a hydrometer specific gravity reading. So as you saw, I previously cleaned and sterilised everything, flushed it all through with clean water. So here I've got my hydrometer tube with the hydrometer sat in it. You just need to be very careful of this because it's obviously glass.
So don't drop it in there because you can easily smash the bottom of it. And then what I do is in here, I've got myself my sterilised turkey baster. Just squeeze the top like that. Get yourself a nice sample, and we're going to try and get that over there without spilling too much. It's difficult doing it one-handed. I'm normally right. Here we go. So we're going to go into there and just get. It's difficult holding the camera at the same time. So we need a bit more. Okay, until we get the glass hydrometer to float, but I don't want to knock this over, I really don't. Another one. And I try to only allow that bucket, my fermenting bucket, to be open for minimum amount of time. Right, it's coming up now. I will do just a little bit more. And because it's all sterilised, I can put this back in again. Right, that's that done. Okay, so we're going to go in for the reading now. I mean, it's going to be really difficult for you guys to see this on here, but I've measured this and I think it's at 1.105. So what you just give it a little touch, see it floating like that, let it settle. And then what you need to do is get the reading off of there. So yeah, it's really difficult for you guys to see it, but I reckon 1.105 is the specific gravity there. Okay, so here's my calculation. 1.105 as read off of my hydrometer. I've got to allow for a little bit of temperature compensation as well. I mean, to the temperature right now here. It is actually very hot for the UK, so my overall total start specific gravity is 1.1082, and then if I look at I've got a little chart here as well, 1.1, so I'm looking at potentially about 15% wine if I ferment it dry. Which is what I'll be aiming to do. In the past I have run a lot higher percentages, but I think I'm going to try and really get this out dry this time. Okay guys, so I'm just making up my yeast starter now. I've got a small amount of the juice out of my plastic fermenting bin. I've topped it up with cooled boiled water. I've added in just about a half a teaspoon of yeast nutrient and salts and whatever else, energizer, to get the yeast really going nicely. I'm using Gervin GV4 high alcohol wine yeast, low foam, very tolerant, and this can in theory go up to, I think it gives the percentage somewhere, 21% or something ridiculous. Anyway, what I've done, I've got 2 packets, opened both of them, put half in here, and I've stirred it in, right, and then the other half, all I do is just tip it on the top, and that's it. I'm going to leave that on the top like that, okay, and then I'll cover it over with a tea towel, put it in a warm place, and that's it for a good I don't know, 6-8 hours, something like that, before I pitch it into the rest of the wine to get it going. Good morning. So we've got another day upon us now, and it's time to pitch the yeast in. So we're just taking a look at where we've gotten to. All looking very nice and active in there. So what we're going to do, get this opened up. Just going to give this a little bit of a stir to start with. Now what we're going to do is just pitch this in here. Alright, and then just stir it in. And that's it. We'll come back and check on that later.
Okay, so it's a few more hours further on. Let's just take a look in the fermenting bucket just to see how things are doing. So that's the yeast activated there, bubbling away quite nicely. So what I'm going to do now is every probably twice a day is just stir some of this back in and just make sure that you know, there's no drying of the pulp or the yeast on the top of the surface there. So that's all quite nicely fermenting away. And we come back a bit later on in the whole process when we're nearing the end of this first stage. All right, cool. Okay, hello. So primary fermentation has been running for 2 days now, and I had previously calculated from the specific gravity that it's going to end up with about 15% wine, but I wanted to boost it up a bit. So I used this chapitalization calculator to work out that if I add another 500 grams of sugar and make a 2-gallon batch, then it'll bring the finished alcohol content up to about 19%. So that's what I've done. I've made a sugar solution here that's cooled and boiled now. So that's in there. And then if we come just over here, this is the wine that's fermenting. Well, not wine, it's going to become wine. But so if you can just look in there, that's fermenting away quite nicely. As I say, 2 days in. So I can't take another specific gravity reading now because some of the sugar will have turned to alcohol already. So anyway, I've done that back calculation to work it out. Here's the new sugar solution going in, and that's 500 grams of sugar. So I'm just going to pour that in there, stir it in like that, and that should be all good. And let's just have a look at the level here. So yeah, I reckon I'm going to get 2 gallons out of that. I mean, I've got to strain, take this pulp out. This is all the pulp. In the next couple of days, I will take that off, take that out, and that'll be done. Okay, that's it. See you again.
So good news, we're now at a specific gravity reading of 1.03, as you can see here. So you just tap the top and then give it a bit of a spin, make sure there's no bubbles on it. 1.03, so we actually started off at 1.1, which is way up here somewhere, but now we're right down here. So we can now, in theory, rack this off into the secondary fermentation, into the demijohns. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to start by straining off the pulp, and you'll see how we do that. Okay.
So we are now removing the fermented pulp that's all in the muslin here. As you can see, I want to squeeze out as much as I can from this because you don't want to lose any of that lovely juice. We're going to fish out some of the remaining
bits as well.
Here you can now see that I'm prepping up for the second stage of fermentation. So I've basically got my 3 demijohns. I'm making 2 gallons, but when I go from primary to secondary initially, I'm going to fill these only probably to about 3/4 full, because the yeast is still very active, so I will get a really big sort of head created as the tail end of sort of the initial fermentation. So I'm going to have 2 gallons effectively, well probably over 2 gallons, but split across the 3 demijohns to start with, and then during the course of the secondary fermentation I will slowly transfer so that I only end up with the 2 demijohns worth of wine, which will be like fully filled to the top. You'll see as we go through the process. So again, I'm using my VWP sterilisation stuff to just clean, thoroughly clean these demijohns, probably 2 or 3 times with just normal soap and water, fully flush them through. Now they're sat in there with sterilisation solution for a little while. I've also sterilised the muslin bag that I used in the primary fermentation. I've got all the airlocks in there and the tubing as well for siphoning off the liquid into the demijohns, and you'll see that as we go into it in a few moments time. We are now about to start siphoning into the demijohns. So again, everything off camera that you won't have seen is like sterilising everything, being really clean, absolutely essential for all of this. So I've got a tube, that's all cleaned as well. My fermentation must is in here, and I'm now going to transfer into the demijohns. So this will be the last time that the solution is exposed to air. The primary fermentation is all about aerobic activation of the yeast. The yeast is multiplying, but now when you get it under the airlock in the demijohns, it'll be moving on to anaerobic operation. So as you can see, what I'm doing is, I reckon I'm going to end up with 2 gallons, but at the moment I was sort of slightly over the 2 gallon mark. Going to split it across the 3 demijohns, because I expect in the early stages this is all going to foam up again as the yeast is multiplying and stabilising. There's still a lot of sugar in the solution at the moment because we were at a specific gravity of 1.03. So there's still some sugar and still some fermentation to alcohol to go yet. What I do as well is with the final little bit in here, I just pour it in. I've got a funnel that I've sterilised as well, so that'll be going straight in there. Just trying to even it up across these 3 demijohns really. There we go. So I'll put the rest in using a funnel. I'll do that off camera again. That's it. Secondary fermentation underway. So here we are, end of day 1 on the secondary fermentation. So what we've now got is the 3 gallons. And what I've done is basically topped up to reduce the headroom. You can see perfectly fermenting away there, all very nice.
So we've got batch 20, which is cherries and banana, batch 21, cherries and banana, and batch 22, I use this one basically to top up the headroom, reduce the headroom on the others, and then basically put in some strawberry juice in this one as well. So we've got a second, type going on here now, cherries and strawberry. But yeah, all looking good, and very pleased with how it's progressing so far.
Couple of days later since we last spoke and videoed, as you can see now, we've got quite a lot of sediment starting to drop out. So this is the cherry, the pure cherry one. This is the second gallon, the pure cherry, and this is the strawberry one here. Quite a fair bit more sediment appearing in that one, but yeah, starting to clear down a little bit now. So looking quite good. Still fermenting away. If we look at the top here, bubbling away all nicely. As I say, this is sort of 2 or 3 days later on now from the last video I did. Bubbling away, fermenting quite nicely. This is the straw cherry wine, this one. Strawberry and cherry. Cool. Secondary fermentation has been running for 5 days now. All 3 of my demijohns are still pretty active in there. Yeast bubbling away. You can see, of course, all of these look nice, lot of activity going on. But we've got a fair bit of sediment now building up. So this is the straw cherry one, which was I only had a limited volume in this one of the cherry, so what I did is I made it up with strawberry juice. The other ones are the pure cherry juice, so I've only got a lesser amount of sediment. But what I'm going to do now is clean up another spare demijohn that I've got, sterilise it all, and then rack off this wine, which basically means I siphon out into another demijohn, and then I replace the headspace that I'll end up left with, because I won't have the sediment anymore, with a sugar solution. So what I've made here is I worked out how much sugar I needed to add into a litre of water, cooled boiled water, and then I'm matching that basically to my desired completion alcohol level. Okay, so let's get that process underway. Right, so here we go. We're going to start siphoning this one off. Everything is sterilised again in my lower one. Right, and what I do as well is I make sure that this, the end of this tube is actually below the surface of the liquid, so you get less aeration. Okay, so that's the whole idea. And then I can just about see the top of this tube where it is, and what I do is I follow it down as we go. Okay, you just see it's filling up quite rapidly, and then as this level comes down, what I'm going to do is just carefully tilt this so that I can get as much of the liquid out as I can, but without picking up any of the sediment. You could come in a bit closer. I want to avoid taking too much of the sediment if possible. And then if you look at the lower demijohn, you can see it's filling up. Tilting this one right over now. Picking up quite a lot of sediment, and that's it. So I'm going to leave that much in there. Okay, so here's the clean demijohn, my sugar solution,
And all I'm going to do now is just top this back up to the neck to limit the amount of airspace we've got in there. As far as I can. Right, that's it, we're good. So all nicely racked now, so we've been in secondary fermentation for 4 or 5 days. Yesterday I racked it for the first time off of the gross lees. So as you can see, very little sediment down there now because all racked off. Topped up with sugar solution to maintain the correct desired alcohol content. Nicely active, as you can see, and the third one there, all bubbling away, lovely, perfect. Okay guys, well that's basically it. All the wine is bottled up now. This is my cherry lockdown liquor. All the labels done and all nicely bottled up. Look, quite pleased with how they've come out. And that's basically it.